dedicated to each and every one of you who appreciate a great glass of wine. You know what I mean?
It's Monday. Let's raise a glass to the beginning of another week. It's time to unscrew, uncork, or savor a bottle. And let's begin exploring the wine glass. Welcome to the Camino del Albariño Masterclass, a special podcast brought to you in conjunction with Olé and Obrigado, hosted by wine educator Rick Fischer alongside Lara Lopez Cano. This episode takes you on a journey through the rich history, culture, and unique flavors of Albariño wine. Beyond exploring its versatile grape, its roots along the famous Camino de Santiago pilgrimage, the hosts highlight Olé and Obrigado's inspiring charitable mission. Tune in to discover how enjoying this exceptional wine during their annual summer campaign supports incredible causes like Wheels on Wheels and a local community charity. Please take a moment to subscribe, rate, and review Exploring the Wine Glass. It's completely free and is a great way to let other wine lovers know about the podcast. Be sure to head over to the website, exploringthewineglass.com, to read my award-winning blog and to see what else I've been up to. And most of all, please tell your friends about the podcast. Slancha.
Give me the red wine.
Hey everybody, I'm Lori Budd, a UC Davis winemaking program, Spanish wine scholar, sommelier service, champagne and Côte d'Aron specialist, and a WSET Level 2 graduate. You can find Exploring the Wine Glass on all the socials, as well as your favorite podcast catchers. If you haven't subscribed yet, now's the perfect time to swipe, subscribe, rate, and review. Stay in the know about all things wine by visiting my website, exploringthewineglass.com. I promise I'll never tell you what to drink, but I'll always share what's in my glass.
Even in the Bible, water go turn right in.
So, welcome to the El Camino del Albariño. This is an Albariño class that we have designed in conjunction with Olé and Obrigado. And I am joined by my dear friend Lara. And Lara, why don't you tell everybody a little bit about Olé and Obrigado? And then we'll kind of move forward from there.
Well, hi, everyone. Welcome. My name is Lara Lopez Cano. I work in the marketing department at Olé and Obrigado. And for those of you who don't know, Olé and Obrigado is a wine and spirits import company. And it was founded in '99 by wine industry veterans Patrick Mata and Alberto Orte. We import authentic wines from Spain and Portugal, and also premium spirits from around the world. But there are truly a million things that I love about this company, but I think my number one thing is the core ethos of giving back, because we truly receive so much love and support throughout the whole country with our trade partners, our customers, all wine enthusiasts. So our hearts are just so full, and how we show our gratitude is definitely giving back. So we're very committed to also sustainability. In 2022, we became carbon neutral certified, so we don't have a carbon footprint. And Rick, this always gets to me. I mean, like, I cry at Disney movies, but it really does fill me up. So last year, we made one of our biggest goals, and we've donated over $1 million since 2006. We've donated to hunger relief, healthcare, farming, education. So we're just so grateful that everyone's here. And thank you so much for joining El Camino del Albariño, the Albariño Masterclass. So today, Rick Fischer, a dear friend of the company, a dear friend of mine, he's going to be leading this masterclass. But he is so well known of all Spanish wine, food, culture. So thank you so much, Rick, for joining us.
Thank you, Lara. So for those of you who don't know me, my name is Rick Fischer. I work with the Wine Scholar Guild as their lead educator for Spanish programs. I created the Spanish Wine Scholar course and the Spanish Wine Essentials course. I'm also a certified Spanish wine educator with the Spanish government, and have my own business, Spanish Wine Guy, where you can find me on Instagram. So feel free to jump on there as well. Now, as Lara mentioned, this is the Camino del Albariño, and I'm going to have her give you a little bit of an introduction as to what this really is all about, because as she just mentioned, The company has donated over $1 million, which is unbelievable philanthropy in this day and age. And so, Lara, kind of enlighten everybody about what the Camino is for us here.
Sure. So this is our 8th annual El Camino del Albariño, and this is our annual summer campaign. And it's really bringing different restaurants and retailers all across the country to show Albariño in a very special way. So this year it's happening between July and August, and you can visit our website, oleanobrigado.com. And on the top of the menu, you'll see El Camino del Albariño, and there you can explore different restaurants and retailers that are showing it in a special way. So for example, restaurants, you can see different pairing menus, by the glass, wine flights, tasting events, or different retailers also with different promotions, in-store tastings, educational signage, etc. So definitely recommend visiting our website later and checking that out. Well, I guess we can go into the mission now. Great. So the whole point of El Camino del Albariño, if you kind of just had to take two big things or why we do this campaign, number one is really to promote the versatility and the diversity of the Albariño grape, and encouraging restaurants and retailers and encouraging all wine lovers to go visit these restaurants and retailers and trying Albariños in different ways. And number two is supporting Wine on Wheels, which is a nonprofit that I'll talk about soon, and also different selected local charities across the country. So here in this slide, you'll see Yannick Benjamin. He's in the top left. And he is a very well-respected somm in the States, known not only for his expertise in wine, but also for transforming the hospitality into a more accessible and inclusive industry. Unfortunately, in 2003, at the age of 25, he was involved in a devastating car accident and he was paralyzed from the waist down. And rather than leaving the hospitality industry, he adapted and continued to pursuing his dream. So he was inspired by his own experience, and Yannick co-founded Wine on Wheels. So this is a nonprofit that raises funds to empower people with disabilities to reach their potential. So what is the best part? I designed this this PowerPoint, but for me, the best part of El Camino del Albariño is that Obrigado has about 15 different Albariños in our portfolio. So something else that I encourage you to go on our website and to look under our wines and all the different Albariños that you can see. But our Albariños during the month of July and August do really make a difference. So we will be donating 10% of all of our Albariño profits from these 2 months to Wine on Wheels and different local charities. So different campaigns that we do, like El Camino, or also wine that we have, Liquid Geography Rosé, and other charitable incentives. Since 2006, we have donated more than $250,000 to Wine on Wheels, and this helps brand new wheelchairs for individuals or anyone who's pursuing a higher education, different scholarships. We've also helped fund people transitioning from nursing homes into independent living. So it's just it just really fills our heart, and we're just really grateful for anyone who just joins El Camino, even just going to a restaurant, visiting your local restaurant or retailer who's participating, and just sharing a glass with your friends.
Thank you, Lara. So just to give you guys a little bit of a picture of what we're going to look at today. So we're going to talk about El Camino de Santiago and get you a little introduction as to where the namesake for El Camino del Albariño comes from. We'll look at Albariño in Spain and Portugal, but around the world as well. We'll talk about the origins, the grape, where it grows, how it's grown, talk about some trends. And then we're going to look at food, because obviously food and wine go together and they are inseparable. But before we jump into the actual presentation itself, have this couple of minute video that gives you a nice introduction to the region of Rías Baixas. So sit back and enjoy.
In the corner of Europe, in the northwest of Spain, wide open to the Atlantic Ocean, lies Galicia, well known for being land of witches, legends, and the arrival point of St. James' pilgrimage route. Filled with breathtaking natural landscapes, powerful gastronomy, and architectural jewels, Galicia is a land full of secrets to unravel. In addition to the natural heritage, Galicia has a unique historical one. Castros, castles, fortresses, pathos, hórreos, mills, bridges, cathedrals. A big number of civilizations have tried to conquer this marvelous territory, leaving their mark on it. I'm going to meet Eduardo, a journalist keen on art, wine and stories.
Por aquí, por las Rías Baixas, pasaron as grandes civilizacións de toda Europa, non? Os fenicios e os gregos que, por exemplo, estiveron buscando o cobre, Xulio César estivo nas Illas Cíes, o corsario Francis Drake, os vikingos de Olaf Haraldsson que conquistaron todas estas terras. Isto é historia viva, a historia de Europa está aquí nas Rías Baixas. É unha terra celta absolutamente, non? Aquí hai unha influencia de todo o norte de Europa. Este era o arco atlántico no que comerciaban os povos celtas de todo o norte de Europa, e aquí estamos no epicentro de todo iso.
And in a place of such a history, is there a history of wine in this area?
O viño é moi protagonista na historia das Rías Baixas, e que aquí xa o trouxeron os romanos, e logo pois hai máis de 1000 anos que se cultivan unhas variedades de uva increíbles. O albariño, por exemplo, que trouxeron os monxes cistercienses que chegaron de Europa vencellados ao Camino de Santiago e que atoparon neste paraíso o mellor lugar onde cultivar esas vides.
I've always wanted to do the Camino, and the things you're telling me even more. Which way would you recommend?
Bueno, a verdade é que casi todo o mundo fala do camiño francés, ese que ven desde Roncesvalles e atravesa as montañas de Galicia, o Pedrafita do Cebreiro e tal. Eu recomendaría sobre todo o camiño portugués, que ven dende a costa portuguesa, adéntrase nas Rías Baixas, e para rematar a Catedral de Santiago, que é o gran monumento e o sitio dende hai máis de 1000 anos a xente quere vir a Santiago.
So that's the Rías Baixas, and then you could see the very end. That was the cathedral in Santiago de Compostela. So where did we get the name El Camino del Albariño? So it comes from El Camino de Santiago, and this is a really fascinating historical piece in northwestern Spain. So the Camino de Santiago, also known as the Way of St. James, is a pilgrimage that is rooted all the way back in medieval times, and it basically leads to the tomb that was believed to be the apostle Saint James in the crypt of Santiago de Compostela Cathedral. So the Camino, it was during the medieval times, and even is today, Europe's oldest, busiest, and most well-known route. Now, basically, you can see from looking at the slide here. So the legend states that his remains were brought to Galicia after his death in 44 CE, and the tomb was forgotten. In 814, there was a miraculous rediscovery of the tomb, and in very Spanish fashion, they built a church or an altar on top of this to actually honor the miracle. And over the course of centuries, it would get torn down and it would be rebuilt, and it would get bigger and bigger. And so now what you see, the cathedral in Santiago de Compostela is the most recent of all of those. Now, it is a major pilgrimage route, and you can see in the video, he talked about the French way and the Portuguese way. And so the French way is actually not the original, but it is the most popular. You can see on the map, it basically starts just over the border, the Pyrenees, and then heads westward to Santiago de Compostela. But you see that there are a number of other routes, and there's even more than what you see on the map here. One of the things that I think is really cool about the way that the route is, and about how the Camino is when people were first actually beginning to do this, they call them the pilgrims. They were given a pouch, a staff or a walking stick, and a scallop shell. And these three things they were to carry with them the entire time. So the pouch was meant to be a symbol of generosity and the degradation of the flesh. The staff or the walking stick was to act as a third foot. And because this was a religious pilgrimage, it actually was a symbol of the Holy Trinity. And then the scallop shell represented the charity or good works, because when you look at the inside of the scallop shell, it actually resembled an open hand. And so today, the scallop shell is the symbol of the Camino, and you'll see that in a couple of the slides as we go through. Now, every year, hundreds of thousands of people traverse the Camino. Sometimes they'll do just a week. The Camino Frances actually takes about 30 days to walk the entire thing. But you can see here on the slide, more than 530,000 people in just 2025 completed some portion of the Camino. And what they do is when they get to Santiago de Compostela, they have a passport and they get the passport stamp. And so you can see the vast majority are walking, but you also have people that cycle, that do horseback, they sail, 319 in wheelchairs. And I think that's quite appropriate given, what we're celebrating and supporting today. So here, just a couple of pictures along the route. Here's the scallop shell that you will see there on posts as you walk, and they're basically here to guide people along the way, along the route. And they follow these scallop shells to make sure they're on the right track. You will see them. I've seen them in sidewalks. I've seen them on streets. I've seen them in posts like this. But they are all there to show the symbol. They're the symbol of the pilgrimage in Christianity. And then this is the Cathedral of Santiago de Compostela. So when we think about Albariño, we think about Spain and northern Portugal. But Albariño is actually grown all over the world, and it has really blossomed. Here in the US, we are actually the largest producer of Albariño outside of northwestern Iberian Peninsula, in California, in Oregon, in Washington, in New York. I also found out recently that there's some being grown in Virginia. There are probably other states that are also growing it too. Then you have South America. The next largest producer or grower behind the US would be Uruguay. Believe it or not, there are some amazing Albariño being grown and produced down there. You also have it in Argentina, in Chile, in Brazil. You see it, of course, in Spain and Portugal, in the UK, in France, where it's now an authorized grape in some of the French wine regions. And then also in South Africa, Australia, New Zealand, and even in Japan. So this is kind of becoming, and Lara and I were just talking about this a little bit ago, this is the summer of Albariño. This grape has just grown in popularity. People understand it. For me, one of the best things about it is that people actually know how to pronounce it now. And so I think that that's always kind of fun when you have a grape that has a unique name like that and that everybody's talking about it. And you can see here are some articles. Wine Spectator, Albariño is our wine of the summer. You've got, I love this one, Move Over Rosé, the summer of Albariño has arrived. And there was another one that was written in the fall of last year about Albariño and aging Albariño, because that's one of the things, and we'll talk about that in just a little bit. But most people think that you have to drink Albariño right off the bat as soon as it comes on the shelf, and that's not true. And so there are a lot of people that are making Albariño in different techniques, allowing it to age longer. I've seen 30 months of lees aging. I've tasted Albariño that's been 10 years old, and it's still fresh and light and has all of the notes that you want, but also has a little bit more texture and a little bit more body. This is a very, very versatile grape, much more than people originally thought 20 years ago. So where does it come from? So the name is fascinating. So it's derived from the term albo, which means white, and the translation Albariño, it really kind of translates to small white one from the Rhine. Now, this was because historically, a lot of people thought that this was related to Riesling. That has since been disproven, but obviously this is the origin of the name. But there are some different stories. You've got that it came through in the 5th century by invading factions. You have that it was brought from Germany or France by the Camino, and this is where they think that there may have been the possible connection to Riesling. There are many that think that it was brought by French monks from Burgundy, but there is no connection between Chardonnay, for example, and Albariño in their profiles. They're so different, and so that has kind of been dispelled. But the most important is the fact that scientific evidence was found back in July of 2020, the Galician Wine Museum discovered and identified the oldest seeds of the variety that have evolved to the current Albariño. This was in an area in a town in southern Galicia called Vigo. And it was actually found in the only preserved evaporation salt mine in the entire Roman Empire. And so the first Albariño seeds appeared. They were carbon 14 dated, and they were dated back to the 2nd to 4th centuries CE. So we now know that the home of Albariño is actually in coastal Galicia. So the grape itself is a thick-skinned grape, and it's actually really interesting looking at this grape. I mean, most of us, when you see a white grape, you think it's just green, but you can see that copper color on the Albariño here. And so the other thing that's kind of interesting about the way that this grape grows is you can see that the bunch is not uniform. A lot of bunches, I mean, if you go to the grocery store, for example, and you pull out, a bunch of grapes, they all pretty much look about the same. Here, that's not the case. They grow, the bunches are very non-uniform. The wine we'll talk about, we'll jump to the next slide here actually and give you a little bit more of a visual picture. So you can see the profile here. You tend to have notes of citrus. You have a lot of notes of melon and some tropical fruits. A lot of it depends on where it's grown. If you have warmer climates, you're going to have more tropical notes. If you have cooler climates, you're going to have more citrus notes. You do get a lot of salinity, and these are definitely more of those primary notes. For wines that are aging or that have malolactic conversion or that have lees aging, they're going to develop, may develop other notes like almonds or a little bit more texture, a little bit more body. So definitely these wines evolve in that. Now, profile here, I would say that this is a little generous. I would say that they are dry, they're fully dry. And they are generally light bodied when you're drinking them young, but they can go to medium body as well. Otherwise, obviously there's no tannins, and they do tend to be medium in alcohol. So they're very easy to drink. Trust me, very easy to drink and to sit on the porch, sit out by a pool, on the beach, whatever, and enjoy one of these. So there are two primary areas, the two best areas in the world for growing Albariño are here. On the map, you can see in Galicia on the coast, and then in northern Portugal in the Vinho Verde region. So let's look at the two. So we'll start off with Rias Baixas. And one of the things that I wanted to point out here, obviously you can see that we're situated directly on the coast. But if you look at the picture on the right, you can see that the way that they're grown, because this grape is grown in a coastal region, the things that you have to contend with are high moisture in particular. So you run the risk of getting a lot of moisture on the grapes, of them rotting. And so the way that they've actually decided to grow these grapes, especially the ones that are situated right on the coast like this, is that they grow them on these systems called parral. So it's a pergola system. They generally sit about 5 to 7 feet off the ground. And you can see these people are actually literally underneath the vine canopy. And so what happens is they're made with granite posts. They've got these wires that cross over the top, and the vines grow across these wires, and the grapes drop in between. And so when they're ready for harvesting, this is how they harvest them. What this does, this actually helps to bring airflow underneath the canopy so that it helps to remove that moisture from the air, and it actually helps to protect the grapes. The green cover as well helps to protect from sun as well, so that the grapes don't get burnt. Now, historically, one of the things that was kind of cool about this was this method was also used because people would grow other agricultural products underneath the canopy. This obviously today we have big fields and whatnot that we do that, but there were a lot of people that were growing their own agricultural products, and this is how they did two at the same time. So this has been an official wine region since 1988. When the region was first established, they wanted to call it the name of the grape. They wanted to call it Albariño. But unfortunately, European law restricts you from using the name of a grape to name a region. So they actually used the name Rías Baixas. Now, when the appellation started, there were only 14 wineries and just under 500 growers. Today, there are about 200 wineries and 4,600 growers. This is an area that is very, very rife with very small plots. Families own plots, and then as they pass on, they pass them on to family members, and they get split and split and split. And so you see a lot of very, very small plots. Now, this is good in many ways, but it also can be tough because obviously when you have a very small plot, you can't make your own wine. So you do see a number of cooperatives that are in the areas here. Very, very good cooperatives making fantastic wines as well. And one of the things that I love about this region is that at least 50% of the winemakers in Rías Baixas are women. This has always been a heavily female-dominated region. And if you think about it, they're on the coast. The husbands would be out and it's a very big fishing villages. They would be out for weeks on end fishing, and the wife would be at home working with the fields and managing the kids and everything. And so it's really fascinating to be able to see such a strong female presence in a region like this. So Rías Baixas is actually broken down into 5 different subzones. And if you look at the map here, the color of the name actually corresponds to the color on the map. So we'll start off with Val do Salnés. This is this region, this area right here. This is it's considered the birthplace of Albariño. It is situated on this coast, and the term Rías from Rías Baixas, basically when you look at this map, you can see all these little inlets that kind of go around here, okay? Those are Rías. And so, so basically what you have is these little microclimates that actually create different settings for the grape. So you've got, in this area here, it is the oldest, it's the coldest, it's the wettest, and it has the highest production. More than 60% of the total production of the entire appellation comes just from the Val do Salnés area. Then you move to the south, and you have the Condado do Teia. So you can see now that we're inland here, this is the second largest, accounts for about 20% of the overall production. And this area tends to be a little bit more mountainous and more continental. So you definitely have you have less rainfall than you would have when you're situated right on the coast. And this area, and so you tend to have a little bit, this is where you can get some of those notes, sometimes a little more tropical than you would citrus. Then you move down to the west this is the Minho River right here that borders that is the natural border with Portugal and Spain. And you've got the O Rosal subzone. Here you're looking at about 10 or 11% of the production. Blends are quite common here. You will see a lot of varietal Albariño, but here you do see it blended with other grapes like Treixadura, Laurera, Caíño Blanco. And here like I said, the wines tend to be more blended than they do in some of the other areas. Those three are the three original subzones from 1988. In 1996, they added this little triangle right here. This is Sotomayor. And so this is the smallest of the 5 subzones. And there's only about 7 or 8 producers in this entire subzone here, but they have decided as a region as a subzone to only work with 100% Albariño. So every wine that comes out of this subzone is Albariño. Then you move up to the north, and in 2000, Ribera da Ulla was added as the last subzone. This is the youngest of the subzones. It tends to be a little drier and a little warmer. And the wines tend to be a little bit richer with a little bit lower acidity than some of the other subzones. Then we jump across the Spanish-Portuguese border to the Vinho Verde region. And here we're in northwestern Portugal. This area, the Vinho Verde appellation, was established back in 1908. Again, this is another area that tends to have, you have large plots, but you also have a lot of small plots. You have about 2,000 growers in these areas too. And when you look at the map here, this is the Monção and Melgaço region here. These are the two primary areas where Albariño is, with a V, is grown. So you got Monção here, and then this is in the north central part, slightly warmer and drier, has a little bit more of a maritime influence. You definitely have a little higher rainfall in this area. And the wines tend to be a little richer and riper than those in the Melgaço region, which is just to the east. Then you have the Melgaço, when these wines tend to be a little bit more similar to O Rosal, that the one that borders, basically we're thinking about this, we're actually situated, they're sitting next to each other, okay? I mean, this area as actually also has a little bit more higher elevation. And unlike the Condado do Teia subzone, this area tends to have a little bit more rainfall. It also tends to have a little higher elevation as well. Here, the producers are actually known to harvest a little on the earlier side to make sure that they keep the acidity higher in the grapes. So climatically, we're looking at primarily a maritime climate. So you can see we're really mostly on the coast, very high rainfall. In some situations, you can have upwards of 60 inches of rainfall a year. I think that runs around 1,500 millimeters of rainfall on these coastal areas. And the most of that rainfall does fall in spring and autumn. I will tell you that as climate change is happening, I have been in this region a number of times, and I've been there when it can be quite warm, especially when you're in more of those inland areas like Condado do Teia. Now, as I mentioned, the rias, these are those little inlets that you have. And these were actually formed by glaciers. They have steep cliffs on them as well. If you ever get a chance to get to Galicia, you have to visit this area. It's absolutely spectacular. And as a matter of fact, Lara just got married in Galicia just recently. So I'm sure she would have more stories for you too. Soil-wise, we're predominantly granite-based in this area. And so granite is a great soil here in the fact that it does drain well, and that's really important when you have such high rainfall. You also have some other soil types. You can see some clay deposits or some sandy granite or slate, but predominantly we're looking at granite. Now, as I mentioned before, there are traditionally, when the region first came out about 40 years ago, and Albariño was really kind of starting to find its legs here, this was a mostly red wine region before the appellation was established. And then all of a sudden, everything started changing. People started taking out the red grapes and putting in Albariño. 95% of Rias Baixas is planted with Albariño. Okay, so stainless steel has always been a very, very popular method. You know, this is where you get those lighter, fresher, younger wines. Their malolactic conversion is pretty rare in these that are made in stainless steel, but it's not unusual. I have seen some. You also see, because this area tends to be heavily moisture, it's not an area that tends to have a lot of organic farming. Now, there are some, and I know that the Ole and Obrigado portfolio does have organic producers from Rias Baixas. But this indigenous yeast fermentation is becoming more popular because, again, things are getting a little bit warmer, but you do tend to see a lot of commercial yeast as well. Extended lees aging. This is actually becoming more popular as people are realizing that Albariño is not just a one-trick pony, that it really, truly is a very versatile grape. You see young wines, you see aged wines, you see sparkling wines now. So it's definitely they're learning more and more as time goes by. As I mentioned, malolactic, some barrel fermentation, and then other styles of wine. Now, some of you may have seen the show last year, Searching for Spain, and this was absolutely fantastic. If you haven't seen it, I think you can see it on multiple streaming platforms now. It is really, really fun. Some of you may recognize this as Eva Longoria. And they did one of the ones that they did. She was visiting every autonomous region, and I think they got through 7 in the first season of the 17. And she was in Galicia. So we thought it would be kind of fun to show you a clip from the show when she visited, from when she was recounting her visit to Galicia.
I moved on to the Galicia region, which they speak Gallego there. They are really known for their seafood, specifically for its octopus, but it's also known for its beef. It has a very, very famous Galician blonde beef that you can only find in Galicia, and it is rare, it is expensive, it is a cow that is massaged and taken well care of until it is on your plate.
Is this where you had a piece of meat and then called your dad in Texas and said, you guys think you know meat?
I did call him. We are at a cattle ranch in Texas. I'm like, if anybody knows beef, it's me. It was the best beef I've ever eaten, by far. Albariño.
Cheers.
Cheers. Another favorite of mine in Spain.
I think that might be my favorite.
No, I love an Albariño too, but Albariño is a grape specific to Galicia. Galicia is really a rich region of Spain that is known for the best products, whether it's produce, seafood, or beef. But the interesting thing about pulpo, which is the octopus, so the pulpo has to be prepared by a pulpera, which is a person who specializes in making octopus. And it's a very simple, you just boil the octopus and then you put a little bit of paprika on it. And then you usually eat it with a toothpick, but we can eat it with our fingers.
Okay. Sometimes in the U.S. when
Chewy.
I have octopus, it's chewy. This is not chewy.
When you're in Galicia, it is out of the ocean onto your plate. The other thing I drank in Galicia was queimada, which is the drink that they light on fire, and you have to say this incantation in Gallegos that burns off evil spirits. And so I got to make that, mix it, pour it in a cup, and burn away any negative energy.
You know, we could all burn away some evil spirits.
Sorry.
I think
Exactly.
it's something we could all use a little bit of.
Exactly. And you know, Galicia was the only region I had never been to. I'd always wanted to go to Galicia because it's the end of the Camino de Santiago, which is a Catholic pilgrimage that could start in France and ends at the cathedral in Santiago, Galicia. And so to be there in Galicia, in front of the cathedral, and you see all of these groups, they arrive and they're in tears and they're praying at the cathedral that they made this pilgrimage. It was really beautiful to watch. And I want to do the pilgrimage one day.
Okay, so I don't know if that makes you guys hungry, but I will tell you, Lara and I were talking about this before the call. It is the best beef on the planet.
La Rubia is so good.
It is amazing. And I mean, one of the things that's really fun is, you know, we always talk about wine and food being, you know, coexisting together. And obviously Albariño is no different. And so I'm going to actually turn this over to Lara, who's actually going to give us a little bit of an introduction to food and wine pairing.
Of course. So, I mean, we all know that Albariño definitely belongs on the table. And I grew up in the restaurant industry. My father owned a restaurant for 25 years in Manhattan. So a lot of Spanish tapas are always, I mean, my family's from Spain. But we love to play this game called Perfect Match. And when you have a lot of friends and family over and you open a bunch of different wines and have a lot of different dishes, and as everyone's eating and tasting and pairing different wines with dishes, at the end of the night, we'd always go around and ask, what was your favorite pairing? What's your perfect match? And surprisingly, I always knew Albariño was always a big hit with many different dishes. And so I recommend for all of you for this summer to play Perfect Match. But as we go into the food pairings, why is Albariño the perfect match? So before I get in there, I would love to talk about this cookbook that I absolutely love. It's called Salt, Fat, Acid, Heat. I don't know if any of you are familiar with it, but it's by Samin Nosrat. And she also has a Netflix special, so I totally recommend watching it. But it really...
Lara, I have to tell you, I just watched that after the
Oh,
last
did you
time
like
we
it?
talked.
What
I
did you
literally
think?
watched it last week. I watched all 4 episodes, and it was fascinating.
It's
So,
amazing. I
highly
highly
recommend
it. Yes.
Back
So
to you.
no, of course, no problem. But I'm so happy you watched it. But it's like, if you haven't watched it, it breaks down cooking into 4 fundamental elements. And it kind of teaches you how to balance your meals. So salt, fat, acid, and heat. So since I personally think one of Albariño's greatest strengths is how food friendly it is, because of its bright acidity, its freshness, its natural salinity, it just makes it incredibly versatile. So I love a good analogy, and I think this is such a great way, whether you're a foodie and you're very well experienced and you're trying to educate someone on something, or you're open-minded and you haven't really explored much of food and wine pairing. I totally recommend thinking and teaching and explaining things in analogies. It's helpful for people to break it down. So sometimes you have to think of Albariño as kind of like the lemon squeeze on your oyster, with that fresh acidity from the lemon, or also the acidity of the tomato sauce on your pizza, how it well complements as one of the 4 elements, or whether the salinity, the salt from the soy sauce to your sushi. Another great example I have here written is the apple slice. So think of that green apple slice, that tartness flavor, and how it how it's such a great match with a piece of brie, for example, right? 2 totally different things coming together, and they just go so well together. And as well as a palate cleanser between courses, Albariño is just such a friendly way. So we're going to go into some examples here. Naturally, Rick and I were talking about this before, but of course, what grows together goes together. So naturally, you think Albariño, a coastal wine, it's going to perfectly go well with so many seafood and fish dishes. So here we have 3 different examples. I definitely put a ceviche in the top left here because I think it's such a great dish that complements Albariño so well, because it has the leche de tigre, the acidity of it, and it complements so well the Albariño with that acidity, that lemon juice of the fish with the lemon, and as well as the rocoto, a little bit of that heat that they add to a Peruvian ceviche. It's just a very well perfect food pairing. And then when we look over here to the oysters, as I said before, that example, think of that fresh lemon squeeze. A good alternative is just having a glass of wine, because sometimes a fatty oyster can really cut well through with the Albariño and makes it a really good pairing. And then here we added a plate of sushi. And in the sense of sometimes in Japanese culture, when you have ginger and it's used as a palate cleanser. So imagine having a very fatty piece of mackerel, and then you switch to a piece of salmon. So you usually have a piece of ginger to cleanse your palate before you jump over to the next fish, because if not, the overpowering mackerel taste might go on to the salmon. Well, I say if you have no ginger, definitely add a glass of Albariño, because it's a beautiful also palate cleanser. So you can use Albariño in many different ways and styles. So now we went from the seafood and the coastal aspect, but now let's go into some other dishes that I believe that Albariño pairs beautifully with. So on the top left, we have fried chicken. Now, I know a lot of people love champagne or cava with fried chicken, right? It cuts through the fatty, the crunchiness of the skin, but I really recommend trying it as well with a glass of Albariño, because the acidity, the salinity, the brightness, it just really helps cut through the starchy, the fatness of the chicken. And the same thing goes with the top right. Here we have a plate of mushroom risotto. I know risotto is a little bit tough with a lot of the constant stirring, but I think the umami flavors of the mushroom and the starchiness of the rice mixed with a glass of Albariño, it really just brightens and elevates the dish. So it's not very overpowering with the very starch. It's really nice thinking of the 4 food element groups and how it helps elevate your dish and helps complement it more. And now here on the bottom right, we have a lovely pad thai dish. I love having Albariño with all Thai dishes, Indian, many different cuisines, Japanese, Chinese. But I put a dish of pad thai. I actually prefer maybe a more an Albariño with a little bit more fruitiness to it, a little more stone fruit, maybe a little more aged. But I think the depth and the well-roundedness texture goes beautiful with a pad thai dish with the peanuts and the different spices. And now lastly, you're probably thinking the steak, right? Why is there a piece of steak? But as Eva Longoria said, the rubia is delicious. But not just any type of steak. I really love and recommend a good piece of steak with really good marbling on it, really good fat. I think it just really brightens it up. And this realization happened during one of our Christmas parties at Obrigado, like 2 or 3 years ago. We all were just coming together. We all brought different dishes and had different bottles of wine opened. And one of our colleagues was like, this is absolutely amazing. Everyone needs to try it because of the fattiness, just simple salt, nothing more added to it. On the grill, coming off from the grill and just nicely sliced. It was just really beautiful and we were blown away. So kind of that game with the perfect match. It's really nice sometimes to be like open-minded and trying new dishes. But of course, we naturally want to gravitate towards that glass of red wine with a steak. But I really just recommend everyone just trying something new and being a little bit more open to it.
I think that that's a really good point too. I mean, I think this slide is probably the big surprise for a lot of people when you look at Albariño and the steak in particular. But I mean, to your point, think about that fattiness, and then especially if you've got a really nice salt layer on top of it. I mean, the saline notes from the wine, and you've got the thing that's really cool is when you look at Albariño, how it works with contrasting components like fat and acid, or when they worked with the same. So, like we talked about, like tomatoes on a pizza are the acid, meaning how the Albariño, the acid, they marry together. And so, I mean, I think that most people on this call will probably be trying something a little bit different the next time they have a glass of Albariño, and I'd highly encourage it. What's really fun, and Lara, I'm going to let you tell about this. I mean, we talk about food. Now you guys have the opportunity to actually, make some dishes yourself.
Yeah, so of course, thank you so much, everyone, for joining our call. You will receive a follow-up email with your certificate of joining our Albariño Masterclass today. You also get the recording of this, so you can always revisit and watch and share with family and friends. Definitely grab a bottle of Albariño and tune in. But one of this other great projects that we did 2 years ago was we created El Camino del Albariño in the kitchen. We just love food and wine pairing so much that we decided to ask many of our friends who are chefs across the country to ask them if they could give us their favorite Albariño recipe, of their favorite dish that pairs perfectly with Albariño. So I definitely recommend downloading this. This is free to download, but we do have a suggest pay what you'd like donation between $10 to $30, because 100% of those donations directly support Wine on Wheels. So some recipes that were contributed are friends Jose Andres, Katie Button, Marcos Campos, Tom Colicchio, and many more. So I highly recommend downloading it. There's about 30 or so recipes, but here I have a photo of Marcos Campos. This is actually my go-to Valencia style paella. And another dish, for example, when you think of adding that lemon on top of the paella for that acidity, right? It goes so well as well with a glass of Albariño.
And I really would encourage you guys to look at this and even being a part. I mean, just for a small donation, I mean, you're not required to donate, but of course, the donation is going to a really good cause. And so I would encourage you guys to do that and flip through. I mean, there's some fantastic recipes in here. And if I would encourage you guys to throw a party and experiment with some of these recipes and maybe a variety of Albariños even at the table. And, it's always a unique experience. So just a few things just to kind of as we come to the close of the session today. I think that we've kind of made it known that this is a dry white wine that's known for high acid and moderate alcohol. It is a great, I live in Southern California where it tends to be, we don't get, really cold winters here. And Albariño is very much a year-round wine, but it's also year-round where it's cold, where a lot of in New York, where you are. So, just because it's, cold doesn't mean you have to pop open a red wine. And you don't want to pop, I'd rather open up a 12% Albariño than a 14% red. So makes it easier to drink more of it. But, the profile of the wine, whether it's saline, it's citrus, it's tropical, it really is truly a versatile grape and versatile wine for food pairing, whether you're drinking it by itself or whether you're pairing it as well. And so we really do encourage you guys to explore the different Spanish and Portuguese wines. And as Lara mentioned at the beginning, you're going to get an email after this is over with with more details. Please visit the Obrigado site. Take a look at the retailers maybe that are in your area that are participating in the campaign. Find some of these wines that are supporting Wine on Wheels and enjoy them. The cause is amazing, and the fact that you've given a lot of the Obrigado's given over $250,000 already just as a part of this campaign is amazing. So we're going to finish off with a short video, and I have to qualify this. I have thought about keeping this video out, but Patrick, one of the owners of Obrigado, this is one of his favorite pieces of the presentation, I think. And so we are going to, I'm going to go ahead and show it to you. I will tell you that it is not recent, and you will know that as soon as you see the video.
Albariño is an incredibly versatile wine. It's a great food wine. It's a great wine by itself wine. As a matter of fact, when my friends were drinking Sauvignon Blanc, I was drinking an Albariño. When my friends were drinking a Chardonnay, I was drinking an Albariño. When my friends were drinking a Cabernet Sauvignon, well, I was drinking a Tempranillo, but not until I started with an Albariño. And as a matter of fact, I really should know by now that I should have two glasses with me. Whenever my friends try an Albariño for the first time, they always want one.
I love that video.
I know. And so I have to tell you, I was actually there with my friend last night at the pool, and we've decided that we need to redo the video. So
okay, good for next year. So
maybe next year, if you come back, everybody will have an updated video. But hey, again, thank you so much for joining us. We hope that you learned a lot, that you have kind of a newfound love and understanding of Albariño, and that you go out and try something different. Lara, do you want to say any final words before we sign off?
Of course. I'm so grateful for everyone to join today. I hope you learned something and take something away. And please always visit our website. You can reach out to us, marketing@Obrigado, for any questions. I saw Anne said, how can I participate next year? So any other questions, but we will be sending a follow-up email. Your certificate, your recording, the presentation within itself. We want to give you also an Albariño cheat sheet to remember. And also, if you have any questions about where to find Albariños also near you, happy to help. You can always reply to that email. But thank you so much for joining today.
So you and I can feel
This has been another episode of Exploring the Wine Glass. Thanks for listening. If you have suggestions on what topics you would like me to discuss, please reach out on social media. You can find me on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook as Exploring the Wine Glass. I am also on LinkedIn as Lori Hoyt-Budd. Of course, you can always email me at exploringthewineglass@gmail.com and sign up for my newsletter at exploringthewineglass.com. If you enjoyed what you heard, please rate, review, and subscribe to help others find me more easily. And most importantly, tell your wine-loving friends, because if you like the podcast, they will too. Podcast music is Wine by Kevins. Until next week, slancha.
I'm on keeping when I make 10 town, I tell you.
There is always time for a good glass of wine.
No, no, no. Oh, no, no, no. Never let you go. Oh, oh. No, no, no. Never let you go. Oh, oh.
I want a nice glass right now.